What's up, you guys? So obviously I haven't posted a video in a very long time, and this is pretty awkward considering the fact that the second to last video that I did was all about how I was going to post 3 times a week. I'm going to be putting out 3 videos a week, and clearly that didn't happen. Actually, what did happen is shortly after that we moved. We went on a road trip through half the country for a month and a half, and sold our house and moved to a brand new house. We sold our house in Delaware, moved all the way up to upper Michigan by some lakes. It's awesome up here. So that being said, I haven't put out a video in a really long time, and it was actually going to be longer because I'm building out the studio in the basement. However, I decided, you know what? You have a cool garage, you have some awesome camera equipment, you have a cool car, you got some dirt bikes. The garage is perfect to start recording in until your studio is done. So we are recording in the garage. I have to say though, it is like really freaking hot. So if you see like sweat beads coming down, that's why. So all that being said, in today's video, we're gonna go over the 5 financial goals that you should try and hit in your 20s. The reason I'm going over this is last week I turned 29, and looking over the peak of 30 has made me really reflect back on what I've done in my 20s, what I wish I did differently, and preparing for the 30s. Okay, so according to CNBC, and this article came out about a month ago, the median net worth of someone that is under the age of 35 is about $14,000, and the average net worth is about $76,000. Now, that's a little higher than what the article from Bankrate was saying from last year, and you'll see a couple other YouTube videos that use this article. But last year they were saying that the average net worth of someone in their 20s was $56,000, and the median net worth was $6,500. So basically what that shows is, obviously we all know it, if you're in your 20s, you really don't have much money. That being said, after reflecting back on my 20s, these are the 5 financial goals that I wish I had in my 20s. I had some of them, but I wish I was really focused on all of these. So the first one is to make sure you have a credit card and get your credit score over 740. Now, I actually talked to someone the other day that's about my age that has never had a credit card before. And it kind of blew me away because I was like, how are you expecting to purchase, well, anything or get a loan for anything? Like, you can't get a loan for a car without a credit score. Can't get a loan for a house without a credit score. You know, you have to have that credit score to be able to get a loan. Now, getting a credit card is the easiest way to get your credit score and get that credit score going over 740 to be able to get better interest rates and get loans on things. Now, once you get your credit card, the best thing to do is you have to pay it off every single month. You have to make sure that you are getting a credit card sooner rather than later. Because when they tally up your credit score, they're basing it off the lifetime that you've had a credit card. Obviously, there's a bunch of other factors. I'll make a whole YouTube video on credit scores, how to get your credit score up. But it's super important in your 20s to make sure you have a credit card, at least one, and start building your credit score over 740 so that you can start to get better interest rates and get things like loans. One of my favorite credit cards is Discover credit card. You get 5% cash back every quarter on certain industries, certain things. So for example, from January to March, you'll get 5% back on Amazon. From April to June, you'll get 5% back at Home Depot. It's a great credit card to be able to start building up your credit, and you'll get high cashback bonuses with that credit card. It's one of my favorites. I'll make a whole video on my favorite credit cards, but I would highly suggest getting that one. Also, I have a link below where it's a refer a friend program that Discover does. If you sign up for a Discover card, you get $50 after your 3 first payments, I believe. So check it out. If you don't have a Discover card, I'd highly recommend getting one. Now, the second out of 5 of the financial goals that you need to try and achieve in your 20s is get out of bad debt. So there's good debt and there's bad debt. Bad debt is basically things where you have a student loan, you have a high interest rate on it, and it's not providing you any kind of cash from it, right? Granted, you know, obviously you need student loans to get through college, to be able to learn, but if you're in your 20s, you should really try and pay that off, especially if the interest rate is really high. Doing so also will help your credit score, so that's obviously goes back to number 1. But an example of good debt is buying something like a rental property, putting 25% down, you have a loan for 75% of the rest of the value of that property, and that property has rental tenants in it, and that they are providing you cash every single month. Technically, it is debt, but every single month you're making money off of those tenants that are living in that property. So you're making money off that debt. So it's good debt. Bad debt, like I said, would be something like student loans, and I would highly suggest paying that off in your 20s. Okay, number 3 of financial goals to achieve in your 20s is having some kind of secondary income. Now, there's like a billion different ways that you can bring additional money in. You can start an Etsy shop, you can be a consultant, you can start your own business, you can run a TeePublic store. There's a million different ways to bring in money in the world that we live in right now. However, the thing I would suggest to do in your 20s, if you want to bring in a secondary source of income, is I would really look at what's your low-hanging fruit. For example, if you're working a job, is there a way that you can get a commission off of sales or referrals that you bring in for your job? Is there someone that is at your job that needs help doing something on the weekends? You know, what's super low-hanging fruit that you can bring in secondary income? It doesn't have to be a huge 6 or 7 figure business that you're trying to start, because that takes a lot of work. But what's some stuff that you can bring in, you know, some extra money every single month, you know, even if it's $300 or $400 or $500 to supplement your salary that you're bringing in from your job. Okay, number 4 of financial goals to achieve in your 20s, again, my recommendation is to build an emergency fund. If you were to lose your job, if you were to have, you know, an emergency, that's why it's called an emergency fund, a health emergency, anything like that, you have this fund built up to be able to put money towards that. Now, I know Dave Ramsey says to have 3 to 6 months. This is part of like his baby step program. Have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund in there so that if anything happens, you could live off of it for 3 to 6 months. Granted, I understand, you know, I've been through my 20s. I understand that, you know, you have very little income. It's very difficult to go and save extra money every single month when you're kind of basically living paycheck to paycheck. So that's why it's super important to work on that secondary source of income, because that secondary source of income might not seem like a lot, but it can help you pay down your bad debt from, you know, number 2. And also it can help fund your emergency fund in case of an emergency. Okay, so the final one, number 5, is investing. This is one that I wish I did at 16, honestly, or 18. Just sometimes sooner than 29. Getting into investing is really important, and here's why. The compounding interest of it is just mind-boggling. If you start at 18 and put your money into something like a Roth IRA at 6 and then take it out at like 60, and you compare that to putting your money in at 29 and then taking it out at 60, the money that you will have is exponentially more. And the reason is you have the compounding interest of it. So for example, if you have $100 that you put in at 18, and then that $100 brings about, you know, a 10% return every single year. So then the next year you have 110. Then the year after that, you're compounding that $10 on top of it. And then, you know, whatever else additional interest that you have on top of that. And the more you do that, over more periods of years, the more you're going to have. So the later you start, you almost can't even catch up to if you had started sooner. The point is if you are in your lower 20s or honestly any part of your 20s, and you're listening to this, start investing. Once you have your debt paid down and some of your emergency fund funded, please start investing. Again, that secondary source of income will help you bring in money to pay off the bad debt, to build up your emergency fund, and then you need to utilize that to invest. Now, a couple ways to do this is through a Roth IRA, where you basically put your money into a Roth IRA, it gets taxed beforehand, and then you can take it out tax-free. Or you can do a traditional IRA where it's basically the reverse of that, where it's put in tax-free and then it's taxed it's taxed at the end instead of taxed at the beginning like a Roth IRA. Or you could do a 401k. I'll create some videos on what each one of those things are, because honestly, it's very confusing. The words that are used, like Roth IRA or, you know, traditional IRA or 401k, they're all just very confusing until you start to really dive into it and figure it out. But I'll create entire videos for each one of those things, explaining to you what those are and easy breakdown steps and how to set them up. But if you set up one of those accounts like a Roth IRA and then put your money into an index fund like something like VTI, over the years of investing, and like I said, by starting earlier, you'll have more at the end. You can easily hit like $1 million, if not more, depending on how much you put in by the time you hit retirement age. So it's extremely important to start sooner on investing. The other thing too is in your 20s, if you're able to, getting into real estate investing. There's so many pros to doing it. Obviously there's some cons, as you know, with anything there are cons, but the huge pros of it far, in my opinion, outweigh the cons. And in your 20s, if you're bringing in a good amount with your salary, your bad debts are paid down, you have a good credit score, and you're able to have these secondary sources of income, taking that money, investing it not only in stocks, but also into real estate, that cash flows, like I said, multi-units or something like that, will really set you up for life. That last piece, number 5, of investing in stocks and getting real estate is something that I wish I did a lot sooner. I'm doing it now, but I really wish I had started it sooner. So if you're watching this, make sure you do number 5. Okay, that's all I got. I am sweating like crazy, so I'm gonna go inside and cool off. Like I said, new studio will be done soon. It'll look really cool. As of right now, we're just gonna chill in the garage with the Camaro Z01 and crank out these videos for you guys. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos on marketing and personal finance.